Unboxing the NeoTools Work Overall HD series from Amazon, and I have size L. What is in there? It's 65% polyester, 35% cotton. It has different pockets, 2 on the chest, 1 here, so basically an outer pocket here, as you can see, and an inner pocket here, and I guess it's the same on the other side. It also has a pocket on the side, on the leg, basically on the quad. And also it has inserts for things to knee on, which is very nice, I think, and this is why I ordered it. And yeah, well, let's get into it. So I already unpacked it because I made a mistake in the video before, and now let's see how it looks. It's dark and it's black with a little bit of gray in there, which was one of the main selection criteria I selected for, because I wanted to have something that is black. It also has basically these rubber things here, which basically close off very nicely. On the bottom it doesn't, so there were also overalls I looked at which has also these rubber things on the button and on the button. And my old one, for example, my old work overall was green, and it had a knob here where you could actually put this together, and this was very handy because if you're walking, things as wide as these or pants as wide as these are usually not a thing that you want to do, because then you're just rubbing the ground with these. So let's take a look at all the different pockets. I already realized before, and now again, one of the main criteria is to put in my phone in a chest pocket with these things. Because, why is this so important? Because I listen to audio, and so basically audiobooks and podcasts all the time, and that's kind of a problem, because it's a problem with this overall, because my phone, a Galaxy S10, which is not the biggest phone in the world, doesn't fit in with the fastening here. And on the other side, I thought maybe this would be a pocket for my phone, but also here you can see it doesn't really close. So this is kind of a bummer, since I do listen to audiobooks and podcasts, as I said, and this was also one of the main benefits the old overall had, 2 zipper pockets here on the chest where I could put in my keys sometimes and also my phone. So then let's take a look at the back. The back is pretty clean. It also has a little bit of rubber band here, as I see. There were also overalls which had an insert for a belt, which is very nice, because otherwise you look kind of just really bulky, because often these don't have like a waist, and this means you could put in a belt, which is also kind of, well, tightening things up, I think. So now let's take a look at, so why in general an overall actually makes sense. I think it makes sense because you have a little bit more freedom when it comes to moving your legs, actually, because you can kneel down more easily, because you just have more room, because you don't have a belt that is then maybe too high on the waist and too low on the waist, and the belt is not rubbing on your hip all the time, which is also something that is not very good. And yeah, well, let's take a look at the back. So on the back we have 2 pockets, and these are just normal pockets, also with Velcro fasteners, just like the other ones. A problem, of course, with Velcro fasteners is that they don't really close the pocket. So if you have something like screws in there, then it may not really work. So then let's take a look at the pockets on the front. And yeah, well, we have a normal pocket in here, as you can see. And then we have again a Velcro fastener pocket, pretty standard with these working pants or working overalls, and the same on the other side. What we also do have is a pocket on the side for often just this thing, which I don't quite know right now, but you can actually put it in, or you can put in a screwdriver or things like these. And on the other side we have again a pocket with a Velcro fastener. So this is now the left leg, and it's not that deep, I have to say. And again, well, and then we have one of these things here. I don't really know what this is for. Maybe for a screwdriver an automated screwdriver. Well, I don't know. And then the last thing we actually take a look at is these things. Basically, they can protect your knees whenever you are kneeling down, which is quite handy, because otherwise you have to bend down, and this is not really good for your spine, I guess. So I have other work pants, and they actually have Velcro fasteners to fasten this up here, but these don't. So if you put something in, it falls out whenever you stand up. So therefore, well, apart from the color, which is really nice, there are now basically 3 major things that are not as good as I hoped they would, but one of them is something I already know. The first thing is the chest pocket. I cannot put my phone in there, and since I cannot put my phone in there, I have to put my phone somewhere else, which probably is one of these pockets. But the problem is it can fall out, and especially if you are maybe on a roof or something like this, or just in general, if you go up somewhere, or if you climb somewhere, it just becomes a problem. For example, I cut trees the other day, so the things on the trees, and if you are up 5 meters and your phone falls out, it's probably not that well anymore. So I could put it in theoretically here, but then there's a problem if you basically lift your leg, then because your phone is usually just right here, if you lift your leg, there is stress that is usually put on the phone, because the phone or phones in general are just too long for not having put stress on there. Even if you have really big pockets, this is a problem. And if you have pockets that are that big that they don't put stress on here, then the phone also often falls out in these positions, which is also, again, not really good. So this was the one big downside of this here. We'll also try it on shortly, I guess. And the other big downside is the fact that it doesn't have any kind of thing down here, which is also something I already knew. So this is basically the thing I already knew. It would be nice, so this is not one of the free things, it would be nice if it had actually belt inserts here where you could put in your belts. And it doesn't really seem that it is a little bit tighter around the waist, which it's not really a problem, but it would have been nice. And the last thing is, which I expected to be there, the Velcro fasteners down here. So as I think it makes sense to now try it on, and then we'll take a look. So now, in terms of fit, this is actually quite the right size, I think. It is not too loose, it is also not too tight. It's basically just the right size. So in terms of looks, I think it looks pretty nice. I mean, of course, this is not the main focus if you buy something like this, but I still think it makes a difference also in work motivation if you actually look kind of proper, you could say. I still have the problem, of course, where do I put my phone in? This is one of the biggest things. I mean, this is just not working. And also, it doesn't really have a little bit of movement here. And it's too tight, which is kind of a problem, because if you really carry things, it makes sense. Of course, if it is too loose and you, for example, run or walk a little bit faster, then your phone flaps up and down all the time, which is also not really good. But at the same time, if it is so tight like here and it also doesn't really close, then this becomes a problem, because now it basically, as you see, the phone is in here, and if I now carry anything, like a box for example, up here, it puts stress on the phone, because the phone is just too long and therefore it would bend, but phones shouldn't really bend, and therefore, well, it's kind of a problem. When it comes to the feet, it's already pretty obvious that I would have to tighten up basically the loose. So I just walk on here in order for me to be able to show all the different things. What is very nice is these rubber bands on here, because they actually kind of, I often wear, for example, a normal watch and also a smartwatch to track my workouts. Not really my workouts, but just to track the steps and things like these. And often the problem is that they, of course, can become scratched. When it comes to smartwatches and working outside, there's also something else, which is called a cover for your smartwatch, which I also have on most of the time. So what I do is I put this on, and then there are two different tricks. The first trick is to wear a glove that is actually covering the thing, and the other trick would be to have something that covers it anyway. But the problem is these arms are just a little bit, maybe too short, and then your smartwatch would be in between the glove and the actual overall again. So as a kind of a trick, you can wear a little bit of cloth that is round around your, maybe an old sock you cut into pieces, and then you wear it around your watches, which worked for me in the past. So now let's take a look at all the other pockets. I think it is kind of nice. A kind of a problem in terms of aesthetics is that it doesn't really tighten in. It would be nicer if it looked just a little bit more, I don't know how you can describe this. It has a little bit, I don't think there is a rubber band in there. Maybe you can put, no, there's also no insert or something like this. So that's basically just a little bit of tightening up material or whatever you call it. So now the pockets, they are kind of the right length for my arms. Sometimes they are a little bit too high, sometimes they are a little bit too low. But because this is probably pretty much the right size for me, well, it seems to be okay. What I like about the pockets is they are completely symmetrical, because I like to have things that are symmetrical, not like one pocket on the left and then none pocket here. And also these are symmetrical, which is also really nice. So it is good that there are two sets of pockets down here. So basically the inner pockets and the outer pockets. The outer pockets maybe for screws and things like these. And then the inner pockets you can put something like, yeah, well, maybe your phone, maybe your keys, and things like these. So then the next big thing is now the knee protection, which is if I bend pretty much on side of the knee, which, I mean, it looks a little bit like a problem because usually these things are a little bit low, but when you actually bend, of course, the cloth moves a little bit up, and then it's exactly in the right spot actually. So there is no Velcro fastener down here. I mean, up until now, I didn't really use these things, these inserts where you could actually put knee protection in there. But I think it makes sense because it just makes you more flexible, because you can just knee down on the ground. Of course, your pants will also get, or your overall will get dirty, but I think it makes sense to just be able to kneel down real quick, which is a lot more possible with an overall compared to wearing a jacket or things like these. Wearing a jacket or things like these, or wearing something like this as a jacket and a normal pant, for example, or a working pant. The advantage of this is also that if you have a phone in there, for example, and you want to store your phone somewhere, and phones are pretty big, and you don't want to wear your phone around your belt or something like this, because then, I mean, maybe a belt case would actually be the best case scenario, but again, because your waist is actually not that big in diameter, you have to put it somewhere here, and then if you put stress on here or here, then it becomes again a very crucial part for damaging the phone actually. So, well, what else is there to say? There are these caps also on your elbows, which is also quite good, because these are things, or these are the areas where it will go, the stress will be put on the overall very quickly. I still think these are nice, even though I also, so one of the big benefits of the old one, which I actually don't have anymore, was also, so if there is an open design, so basically you have open things here, so the other one had also kind of things that you could actually close, kind of a button you could actually close here, which was also really good. So I could also wear this overall in summer, for example, for lowering the moan or something like this. And what was the benefit is that because these things were open, it was a more open design, you could actually also wear it in summer and not really sweat that much. So right now I only have boxers and a shirt under here, which is basically the way I would usually wear it. And if I then would additionally need something else in the winter, for example, I take just a jacket and put it on top of this. You still then have the pockets, and if you get warm, you don't have to throw away the jacket with your phone, for example, or the essential things, because often, what is often the case, if you then have an additional layer of clothes on here, and then you take away this layer, and then you suddenly don't have access to your keys or your screwdrivers or whatever anymore. Therefore, I think it makes sense to keep all the different things you actually need in the lowest layer of the overall. So now, overall, I don't really know what I will do right now, because this has many benefits. Among these, here pockets, so here are actually is only this one pocket I actually already showed to you. This one pocket for, for things like a screwdriver or also for things like these, as you can see. And then we have one pocket on the left here. We have the double pockets here on here. Then we have two pockets on the rear side, and we have two chest pockets. The problem, one of the main parts, or one of the main problems is, where do I put my phone? I still don't know. I think it looks quite okay. It is pretty dark, so this is basically normal black. It's not completely black, but it is pretty gray, and it doesn't look too... So kind of the problem if you completely wear black is that black is not associated with being bright and friendly. Therefore, this is kind of a problem. So therefore, having a little bit more muted colors is maybe a little bit of an upside. And also, I hoped that the gray wouldn't be too bright, which is true. The gray isn't too bright, and it looks pretty much kind of blacky overall, but still it looks, I think you kind of look professional in here, like a professional worker, whatever profession you are. So I think this is a wrap up. I don't really know if I will keep this or I will send it back. I intended to buy this and not send it back, but since it has kind of a few downsides, among them, this is one of the biggest points why I actually had or wore an overall in the past, because of the phone. And I don't want to not listen to podcasts while working. This is not an option. I also try different things, like, for example, when cutting the tree, having the phone on the ground and then listening to over Bluetooth, which I usually do all the time anyway, but not all the time, but whenever I listen to, I take a Bluetooth connection, because that just allows more degrees of freedom when doing different kinds of work. But so what did I want to say? I forgot actually. So, well, I guess then that's the end. I don't really know if I will keep this, but at least now you know if you want to buy this thing, how it looks. And it does run a size small, as I said, so maybe order a size bigger. And I think it's quite the right size. It actually looks really good. And apart from these few things I mentioned, well, so what I wanted to say is that one of the main points I actually wore overall in the past was that I could put in my phone, compared to having my phone in one of my trousers or pants pockets, where you can not really run that good, or where it just is in a way all the time. That's a wrap.